How you doing, everybody? Here we are back at the sink for another hone stone, sharpening stone. Got some penguins here. They're hanging out. I'm gonna put them over here for safekeeping. So what do we have? Well, what we have here, this is kind of a makeshift stone. Right? So this is a Tam O Shanter, right? Scotch stone, also known as a snake stone. I think they call these things. This is a little slurry stone. David was really nice enough to send this to me because I used to have, if you look at my website, you'll see like a 6x2x1 Tam O Shanter, right? This is not that. This is basically a kloosh. And what this is actually two Tam O Shanter stones that are like, I don't know, what is this, 4 or 5 inches, something like that, by one. And I glued them together. And then I lapped them down, right? Because I really didn't feel like investing in a showpiece stone. The one that's on my website is like really cool, has a great label and all this. And, you know, these stones are not new to me, but there's been some renewed interest in them. And I don't know, I was talking with Rick. These two logs came to me from Rick. He was nice enough to send them over to me. We did like a little trade. Because I wanted to like try and do something and just sort of renew my interest, or whatever. I'm always curious about stones. So anyway, so I have this, and I tested them side by side before I glued them together. And even though you can see that they're like a little different in color, there's absolutely like no honing, sharpening difference between the two. Putting the striations under a scope, could not tell two stones from each other. So I was confident that gluing them would make like a nice little honing platform, and I could do that, and it would be groovy. I have a little bucket of water down here under the sink. All right. And you see when you wet it down, it gets a little, I don't know, ugly, for lack of a better term. So what are these, right? What are these in the world of stones? People want to know what they are. Well, this is like kind of like a clay mudstone type of thing. It's not a shale. It's not foliated. It's not slate, which would be no longer sedimentary. Slate is a, metamorphic term. Shale comes in earlier, in that process of diagenesis. So you start off with layers of mud in the ocean, and then it compacts down, and the compaction and the cementation, that process is called lithification. And don't worry, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I just want to give you like an idea what we got here. So this is like a mud clay stone that if it kept going through diagenesis, it would probably turn into a shale. But it's not shale. So when you work with them, they're like, I don't know, they're kind of smooth, and they're like a little, I guess, soft is the word I'm looking to. There's not like a lot of There's not like a lot of grit feeling to it. It's a very smooth feeling, and people will say, "Oh, they're fast, they're slow." They're a slow cutter. The manufacturer when they made them, the Honeworks over there in that part of Scotland, there was a bunch of mills. There was the Dalmore mill, so you may have heard of Dalmore blue, Dalmore yellow, different type of stone, but from the same area. Then there was Milton mill, and there may be a third one, and then it all like joined up, and it became the Tam O Shanter Water of Air Honeworks. Now, Water of Air, in the early days, 1800s, the Tam O Shanter, the snake stone, whatever, was also called Water of Air. All right, the names were used interchangeably, and there's like some confusion. If you read historical references, you can get confused. Then late 1800s, when the companies merged, I don't know if it happened right then or not. I'm making some slurry here. I just want to show you like how the water sits on top. It seems like it's a pretty dense stone, right? It's not like really sucking the fluid in. So anyway, at some point, the Water of Air stone became a different entity. So I happen to have one. Here it is. Okay, different stone. You'll see that. It will be in a different video. And so there's some confusion there with that. So basically the theory is in more modern days, you would have a Dalmore with a medium stone. The Tam O Shanter was listed as fine, and then if you wanted real fine, like for scalpels or razors, you got the Water of Air, and that was extra fine. on each box, it'll tell you like some things, and one of the things on the box with these stones is, mentions being a slow cutter, and it kind of is. If you lean on it, yeah, it sharpens faster, but by no means is it a fast stone, and if you lean on anything, it'll cut faster. So a lot of the wizards in the honing and sharpening world, they just create like their own reality. Okay, they obviate like existing norms and facts because like the one stone that they own, they've determined it to be like have a particular type of personality based on their limited experiences. And I guess I understand that, but it's kind of like annoying to me because the last thing you want is for a newcomer to get one of these and think he's going to get like some stone that's just going to like blazingly get you to whatever grit you think you're going to. Let me move this out of the way. So that's the other thing, the grit. Where are we at? All right. Well, you see it's kind of hard. You see it's kind of dense. You see it's not like soaking in water, and that's all like really interesting. Now, a lot of people have put up a lot of information about these stones, and then you have the whole, your mileage may vary thing. You have the whole, well, it depends on what kind of, whatever example of the stone you have. They say the lighter ones are finer than the darker ones. In this particular case, they're exactly the same. I have a dark tam in the back. It will be in yet a different video. And it is a hair more coarse than this. I'm not talking about the difference between 1K and 5K Nani or Superstone. I'm not talking about that at all. It's not that dramatic. But there is a difference. Whether or not that has to do with the color, I don't know. But I think there might be some general kind of rule of thumb that the lighter ones in general are probably maybe going to be a little finer. As anything else, you got to test, okay? You always have to test. You can't go by what I say or anyone else on the internet or anybody in a honing forum or a honing group or whatever. If they tell you, oh, this is an 8K stone, please just disregard that and take it home and compare it to what you have, right? You may think it's like an 8K stone. You may think it's like a 6K stone. Remember, it's a natural stone, not a synth. Particulate size doesn't factor into this. It's to reference natural stones with grit, which is an assignment to a synthetic particle done in a rather convoluted manner. All right, I'm not going to get into that now, but they don't. It's everyone's particle is a different shape, so the way they come up with the actual grit number is a little ridiculous, and it's all relative. So anyway, what I have found that this stone here, okay, is somewheres north of the equivalent, the sharpness effect on my blade, okay, is north of 5K. I can get a finer edge with an 8K. I can get a shaving edge off this stone, but it's not like the best shaving edges. In fact, I really don't want to do against the grain on a 2-day beard with it. But I can get a shaving edge out of it. Now, if I put oil on it and I hone like with, super butterfly weight, lack of pressure, maybe I can get it up a little higher, the sharpness level that is, but you don't really change the grit when you do that. You're just getting out of it what you can get out of it. So that whole concept of, oh, this is a 7K stone, but with your light touch, it's 12K. That's just like the biggest bullshit marketing crap I've ever heard. If you know, you know what I'm referring to. So anyway, here we have a couple of swipes. Now, you saw me put some slurry down. There's still some slurry here. I have not seen slurry on this stone for doing finishing work on a razor be productive. I haven't seen it get in the way, but I have not seen it be productive. It's not like a JNAT. Slurry is not breaking down. You don't have continued refinement as a result of working it. But what it does do is it gives a little cushion and a little bounce. And bounce is the wrong word, I guess, but it's my word. And it's kind of like a lube. It's a little bit more lube than having just water. And if you use oil, which I don't want to do, because these stones will soak oil in like there's no tomorrow. But maybe with the oil, maybe getting a little bit more performance out of my work. Notice I'm saying my work, not the stone. The stone is the stone. Putting oil on the stone doesn't change the stone. might change your result, but that's affecting your work. It's not affecting the stone. There's no abrasive in oil. Oil does not make one grit finer than another. It just reduces the friction coefficient, and if handled correctly, you might see an improvement. So anyway, so what am I feeling? I'm feeling like nothing, no abrasive. Not feeling like slurry on a Jane hat, or even for that matter, not even like on a, what do you call it? Asher. It's kind of like neutral. It's not a very exciting stone. Not in that regard. Now, before you go off saying, oh, Keith doesn't like them. Listen, I kind of like them because they're kind of neat and they have a lot of history. If you go online, I'm not going to bore you with the story of the quarries and the mines and the exposition and everything else about how the stones came to be. They were super popular. They were like a big deal in Europe, and they were shipped all over the world and blah, 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 blah. So it's not that. Just that in a practical sense. I look at these more like mid-range. Advanced mid-range, but still mid-range. And mid-range is, meh. It is what it is. How much mid-range do I need? When I first got into honing, people on a particular shaving forum were fond of regurgitating a comment that I think somebody invented, so they sounded good, that had to do with these stones being good for blades that chip. So if you had a blade that chipped at the edge when you're finishing, you could use these stones, and the chipping would cease. It would stop. I got to tell you, this is just like more forum bullshit to me. It's like, who has chronically chipping edges? Where are these razors? Do you know how many razors I've honed in like the last, 10, 12 years? Like a lot, okay? And, so I don't do it professionally. Like Nelson hones a bazillion more blades than I do, and I don't recall once him calling me and saying, hey, I got a blade that chips. Do you have a Tam O Shanter? I don't recall that ever happening. All right, so there's that. I can see how someone would want to make that analogy because it's kind of a soft slurry and kind of a soft, smooth stone, and there isn't a lot of activity. And, I could chip, if I wanted to, I could probably chip a blade on most stones. Some stones do chip. There was that one ILR stone that just chipped the hell out of everything that was even near it. And maybe that was a one-off stone. I don't know, but I've actually heard the story from other people. So there are stones with, let's call them toxic inclusions. There were some Janettes with that. There were pyrite inclusions in Eschers. It's not an unknown thing. But I've yet to run into anything of that sort with this. So there's that. It's a very smooth, consistent stone. And, maybe that's how that rumor came to be. Just another old wives' tale from the shaving forums. And, it's like regurgitation city in those forums and groups. Somebody says something, it sounds good, people don't fact check, and they just start running all over the internet repeating it. Oh, I got these in case I get a blade that chips. I don't know, man. I mean, I've had blades that had chippy steel because it was rotten, but it didn't matter what you honed it on. It was going to chip until you got the good steel, so there's that. So for all I know, somebody had a chippy blade, and then he got to one of these, and he just honed to good steel, and his anecdotal evidence was, well, the chipping stopped while I was on a Tam O Shanter, so it must have been the Tam O Shanter. It couldn't possibly be the fact that you honed into good steel finally. There's a lot of that goes on. That's why when I see people, oh, I tested this. Yeah. What was your test? What was your control group? All right, so I've done a lot of this. Let me take a look. The blade here is a Solingen, by the way. It's a, what do you call it? One of those improved eagle blades. Very serviceable. You see the edge. Let me take my loupe. Polish-wise, right? Polish-wise. I honed this to 4K on synth. I used my my Naniwa. It's the finishing stone 4K, the sister stone to the AK Snow White. Magnesia binder, blah, 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 blah. And, okay, so it was very, very, very refined 4K edge. I could probably squeeze out a shave on it. It wouldn't be like uber comfortable, but it was highly refined. I'm looking at this now after being on this stone. The polish is bumped up at the bevel, which doesn't mean anything about apex, but it will factor in at some level somehow. But in and of itself, it doesn't mean anything. I'm just making a point. The polish on this is bumped up a little bit from 4K, but not like, 8K Snow White or Fuji or Superstone level polish. It's not there, right? It's a natural stone, not synthetic. It's going to be, by nature, a little more matte. I expect that. But looking at this here, I'm thinking, if someone put a gun to my head and said, what do you think? I'm saying 5, 6K. That's what I'm thinking. So what I'm going to do, because I got some honing to do on this, and I also want to do a finishing test on this guy, right? Now, I've run 3 finishing tests on that already. And I want to do 1 or 2 more before I do a video. So when I speak from an educated point of view, and it's not just a one-time view. So anyway, that's our Tam O Shanter thing. It's not like earth-shattering news. It's not, some kind of major hone test or anything like that. I don't do that type of thing. I just take a stone out, I hone on it, I tell you about it, and, people can make of it what they will. Maybe some of what I put out there will help make some sense out of these stones to some people who haven't touched them yet, or maybe shed light on them to people who do have them. So anyway, I think they're pretty interesting. They're available right now. I don't know, so there must have been a closeout, so like a print shop, because they use these to polish down printing plates or something. I don't know how it worked. So there's a whole bunch coming out of the UK. They're affordable, they're accessible, and whenever that happens, that combination, accessibility and affordable, all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of buzz on the stone, because people love to like buy the stuff that's like, pocket friendly and then talk about it endlessly. Don't be fooled. These stones are not going to change your life. They're fun, they're nice, good to have, but they're not what I call the cat's meow. Good serviceable stone, though, for the position that they hold. Anyway, all right, with that, we're going to wrap it up. And just remember that this is all about having fun, and that's all it should ever be. So make sure you keep it there, get your stones out, make some good edges. Have a great time. Until next time, take care. Talk to you soon.